Well, Brock, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. So 17 years, I've started about 20 different companies. The sectors that I'm familiar with would be ad tech, payments, digital currency, games, and gambling. And I've been full-time in the, call it cryptocurrency ecosystem for coming up on 2 years now. And playing in this space vertically, horizontally, pretty much every piece of it, from hardware, ATMs, mining. I mean, I'm up and down the entire ecosystem.
Well, we're going to get to mining in a second. We weren't planning on it, but this isn't for us. It's for you guys, and I've had a couple questions. So if you have questions, make sure you ask Amy. She can bring them up here. But your first exposure to digital currency was before anybody called it cryptocurrency. Could you tell us about sort of your background in the digital space individually?
Yeah, so these wouldn't have been cryptos, but I was in the digital currency world back in, call it 1998, 1999, around closed systems. The first sort of emerging, active currencies you saw were frequent flyer miles, loyalty programs, affinity programs. And it also started to become popular when the gaming world started to release persistent games or persistent worlds where anything that you were accumulating or collecting over time, continued to have utility. And so in 1998, 1999, I said, people playing these games have an interest in buying digital currency and digital goods. And this was at a time before any of the game companies actually recognized that there was a business model in doing that. So I'd started a small company. Something else was getting too big that I didn't pursue it at that time. I came back into the market in 2000, 2001. I started a business called IGE, which was making a market for digital currencies in games like EverQuest and World of Warcraft and persistent worlds like Second Life, and took that business from 0 to $100 million of revenue, call it in the first couple of years. I needed to source digital currency to sell to those potential customers, and there were more buyers than there were sellers, so I educated the emerging markets as to a new way to generate income. So I built a 400,000 person supply chain in China that would play games professionally to mine digital currency. That was over 2002, 2003, 2004. Sold that business in 2007. I rolled up the world's exchanges for the buying and selling and trading of digital currencies in games in 2004, 2005, 2006. Still have that business today. We do over $1 billion a year. Brought in major institutions like Goldman Sachs and Oak Investment Partners. And so a lot of, it's not a cryptocurrency, but a lot of the same sort of, call it skills that were required to operate these businesses. I mean, just getting bank accounts. They're going, oh, is this gambling? Is this money laundering? And so a lot of the same challenges that we in the cryptocurrency ecosystem today face were, things that I dealt with back then. So it's been helpful.
You guys need to know, I mean, he's been involved in helping people get involved before there were exchanges. Before there was a place to just buy a mine or pick up some Bitcoin because you had some money you wanted to put into something that you could see the vision on. I mean, you want to talk, we're here early. We're here early. Now, 1998 is when I graduated high school.
Well, we're the same age then.
I mean, that's a long time ago. That's a long time ago. But to have that kind of vision, see the writing on the wall. Now, I do want to get to mining. I know you have funded, if I'm wrong, correct me, but you've funded more digital projects, more cryptocurrency, more Bitcoin projects than anybody else. Could you talk about, and I have more questions for you,
yeah.
But could you talk about a little bit of the mining projects that you've done? Then I'll take one question from the front. We'll get back on topic on some of the other questions, and then we can go back to questions at the end. But could you talk about some of the mining projects you've done and where you see that really going, how somebody like, a gentleman in the front or anybody in the stands could get involved there?
Yeah, so I was dabbling with Bitcoin in 2009, 2010 on the mining front. And then as the ASIC market started emerging, I think I was operating about 10% of the world's batch one Avalons, which was a pretty significant mining operation at the time. I was an early customer of KNC Miner, which is why I run kncminer.cn. I'm the exclusive distributor of KNC Miner's products into China. And that deal came about, I guess, because I was a customer, and I said, how are you guys going to be selling into China? And they're like, well, we'll just sell into China. I go, how are you going to ship the products there? They're, well, I don't know, FedEx. I'm like, well, customs, import, export, let me help you with that, and local payment systems and things of that nature. And I do the same thing for RoboCoin in Asia as well.
How many, well, actually, you know what, guys, you got to have a question. There's nobody better to ask, and if you don't have one right now, don't just throw one, save it, I'll come back to you. But if you have a question that's on the tip of your tongue, you're sitting in the front, I really appreciate you. What would that question be for Brock?
One of the biggest questions that comes to mind is ASICs and Bitcoin mining are now steadily heading downhill with the increases in difficulty. And we know it's the easiest algorithm to mine with, SHA-256. With the new ASICs for Script coming out, how do we combat the increasing difficulty and the usage of memory as far as that's concerned?
I guess it's a good question. Yeah, no, the Script market is going to obviously be impacted in a pretty big way with Alpha T's equipment coming out, KNC miners, Titan, and probably another 5 or so Script ASICs in production. Yeah, no, we're going to see the market change potentially. I mean, Script is not going to eliminate your ability to make money if you're running GPUs like it did in the Bitcoin space. I mean, if you're not running the latest and greatest ASICs in Bitcoin, there's really no opportunity to mine profitably. Your electricity bills are going to be higher than any of the output. And so we'll see what happens here. I'm concerned that it could actually have a really negative impact on the entire Script market, or it'll end up having a positive impact. And
I mean, Brock, do you see it taking the GPUs out of the market as far as, like it did with Bitcoin?
Question is, do you see the increased difficulty taking the GPUs out of the Bitcoin market?
Yeah.
well, it's going to be less so than it did with Bitcoin, but over time, my guess is that probably is going to happen. I mean, the mega hashes coming out of, I mean, we're talking mega hashes, not giga hashes, tera hashes or peta hashes, so it's not going to have that same level of disparity. There's still some opportunity to mine with GPUs. There's probably another 12 months in the Script markets, and there still may be an opportunity beyond that as well. But yeah, it's going to have a negative impact, and you're going to want to have specialized equipment, and probably KNC miners, Titan would be a good source for that.
See, I see it as a positive. I mean, it might be negative for the
But it creates
individual.
security.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it more real to
Problem,
me.
yeah, the problem with most of the altcoins today is they're not very secure.
Yeah.
The ASICs are going to give a greater level of security to each of these coins.
You have funded a lot of projects, more than anybody, definitely this year, and I don't have the actual statistics. I'm thinking more than anybody, period. So I have...
Roger Ver's made a lot of investments.
I know he has. I know, that guy's incredible. I wish he was here. But we got the better. So could you tell us what you look for in a project in the Bitcoin or in the crypto space? What are you looking for? And the next part to this question is, how can somebody approach you to potentially... Who here wants funding? That's it? Raise your hand. Make me feel good. Who here would like funding for their project? All right, there we go. What do you look for? And the second part is how could somebody approach you and maybe get into a situation where they're doing business with you?
Well, I'm easy to approach. You can ping me on LinkedIn or send me an email, brock@gocoin.com, for example, will get to me. Yeah, I've done about a dozen deals so far this year, which is about a deal a week, which would make me pretty active. What am I looking for in investment opportunities? Management, founders more than anything. You're investing in people. And hopefully you're pursuing some aspect of the ecosystem that I think is significant. I was talking with one of the other people here about a deal that they just funded, which is SIM cards. It's basically a SIM wallet. And I'm very interested in that for the emerging markets, places like Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia, because I think this is where Bitcoin has the greatest potential, or cryptos in general. But still, the majority of those people don't have smartphones and don't have the ability to, and they don't have computers. So I think the feature phone market is, a very interesting one that I'm excited about. As a deal, I'm pretty sure I'll end up putting some money into. There's another group here, BTC.SX. I spent some time with them Sunday night. I think they've got an interesting business in, call it the derivative space, and building advanced sort of trading capabilities around Bitcoin, and they've had a lot of early traction.
How big could, and again, Bitcoin's the big one, right now. It's the one that hit the scene. It's got the highest value. We can't get away from placing a money value on things, essentially, some of the functionality. How big could it get?
Bitcoin?
Yeah.
I mean, when people say Bitcoin could end up being, $1 million a coin, it is absolutely feasible. The question is, are we going to end up with one or two or three, sort of coins, with one being the vast sort of majority of the market? I mean, I guess in a perfect world, the world might be most efficient if there was a single currency. The reason we have 200 is every government wants to print their own. Do I actually know what the future holds? Absolutely not, or I would only be doing one thing instead of everything. But no, Bitcoin obviously could end up, there's 21 million coins, could easily be a $1 trillion market.
Yeah. Is it true? I heard one of the biggest proponents of cryptocurrency say that self-worth, self-belief is probably the biggest thing you can do for an individual, whether you're working with kids or working with people. That 6/7 of the world population does not have access to any type of banking or financial infrastructure. They can't start business. And with a cell phone, you can do that. So that's 6 billion people on the planet. Is it true that Bitcoin could reach more places than a fiat currency could ever reach?
Yeah, I mean, this is when I'm trying to explain the cryptocurrency sort of market and why it's interesting to people that are not in the business. I try to deliver a very short message that helps you understand the scope. And I do that by saying only roughly, call it a quarter, maybe a third of the world's population has access to the global financial system. Bitcoin democratizes that in a way where every human being on the planet with a phone now has access to the global financial system. If you're an internet company or if you're selling a product or service online, only about a quarter of the world's population that has the ability to come to your service has the ability to transact with you. It allows every human being on the planet to have access to the internet economy. These are huge things. You're talking about increasing the global total addressable market of potential customers by 300 or 400%. Right. It's a big deal.
Yeah. And quickly, who here said they've had a hard time explaining Bitcoin to somebody new? Could you help us? Okay, so you're speaking to the Scholastic, and again, this place is incredible. You guys know the Scholastic is the largest publisher of children's books anywhere in the world. And explaining this to a child, which essentially in Bitcoin is what most of us would be, how would you explain it?
Well, I normally, the last description I gave is helping people understand sort of the global macro opportunity. In terms of describing the currency itself, I mean, it's depending upon the audience, I try to connect with everyone, but it's digital currency. It's money that you can send anywhere in the world instantaneously with minimal sort of transaction fees. It's deflationary in nature, meaning the purchasing power, in theory, assuming that there's more capital inflows to the ecosystem, your purchasing power increases over time, which is the opposite of all other forms of money. Typically it's less about America. Americans are actually where I have the biggest challenge in helping people understand why you need it. Because we have a lot of the American population is banked. We still have a very significant unbanked population, but we've got payment systems that are pretty well rolled out everywhere. Most of our transactions today are not using paper money at this point. We've got credit systems, we've got rule of law, we've got faith in the commercial sort of system. So for most Americans, we don't need Bitcoin. But when you start looking at the rest of the world, and you start looking at places like Argentina right now, you start looking at places like Africa, you start looking at places like Southeast Asia, where every 7 years, one of the South American economies completely collapses, and every dollar your family, your father, your grandfather made, any amount of wealth that you've accumulated, you wake up one day and it's just all gone. Yeah. We don't normally wake up worried about these things to the same degree that a lot of other people around the world do.
Oh, I know. I actually lived 1 year in Venezuela, and
yeah.
So I have some friends that
Venezuela's a mess.
Oh, it's a mess. But I know people in Argentina that are actually buying cars as a way to secure their cash. The currency is deflating so quick.
Well, they want anything.
A car.
Cars, watches, anything.
That's the worst.
As a store of value, anything but the peso.
Yep. Amy, do you have a question?
Yes.
Go ahead, ask me, I'll ask him.
Have you heard of
Myriad?
Have you heard of Myriad?
What are your thoughts as to whether it can solve the GPU versus ASIC debate?
Myriad.
Could Myriad change the GPU versus ASIC debate?
I don't have an answer to that. I need to know more about Myriad.
Yeah, I heard Myriad. Myriad is a hybrid 5 different difficulties, 5 different algorithms.
And so it's a different coin then?
Yeah.
Okay, with a different sort of mining. Yeah, no, I mean, there's ideas as to, I mean, Ethereum's doing some things right now to try and hopefully democratize sort of mining in a way that you have less, call it, large enterprise. I mean, you're seeing concentration in mining over time because of the cost to participate, and you're going to end up with, 10 major hubs, which is a majority of what, is powering the Bitcoin sort of network today. And that's kind of the opposite of what we wanted. We wanted mass decentralization with, 1 million nodes running around in all of our pockets. And we're not having that. So I mean, I'd love to look at it closer to understand what the issue there is and if they've found a solution. But I think it's a great thing ultimately for greater decentralization, is where anyone can mine with their phone or a USB drive or anything.
Brock, I've been curious about some of the other advantages to decentralization. It is a perfect world to think of that. The decentralization of money without paying the fees, without needing an intermediary, slowing things down, increasing the costs. Maybe if you could mention a few of the obvious, benefits of decentralization, but maybe a few of the unobvious ones that you see because you're so close to the source of this.
Well, I mean, the key value is, again, in a world where you don't trust me, I don't trust you, which is, part of the reason that the internet economy is limited to a lot of people around the world, is because when someone comes online and wants to make a purchase from Nigeria, Hong Kong, anywhere, most merchants, through to some step in the stack, prevents that from transacting. But we live in a world where typically you have trusted counterparties. We're eliminating the need for that through decentralized systems like this that are inherently secure and trustworthy. Everything ultimately should be decentralized. I mean, this is the reason why I think Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general is it's a larger market opportunity than the internet. I call it kind of the real internet 2.0. It's because we're just re-architecting it on a better internet protocol that's inherently secure and trustworthy and eliminates, the millions of middlemen that are providing very little value to, the participants on either side of a transaction.
What would it take for another currency to come up and I would say maybe at least rival Bitcoin in terms of perceived value? What would somebody need to do?
Well, I don't know if Bitcoin is the Friendster, the MySpace, or the Facebook. I mean, clearly right now it is the dominant currency, but it was also first. I think for something else to rival Bitcoin, it has to come along and be better. And certainly that could happen. I don't have any predictions as to, but also the best technology doesn't always win. Actually, it almost never does. It's often whatever's the biggest. It's got the most velocity. It's got momentum. It's got mind share. It's got market share. To rival Bitcoin at this point is not going to be easy, but it certainly could happen. But I think it's something would have to come along that's substantially better for whatever reason. Maybe it's the way that the mining, if we talk about people say, oh, what are the scenarios by which Bitcoin could fail? If there was something wrong in the underlying protocol, doesn't look likely, but that could end up being a problem. If something came along and it was substantially better, the markets may move into a different coin over time. I guess long-term, maybe quantum computing.
Right. It's funny you mentioned that. I've had a lot of people ask. Before we actually get to that, because I don't think it's much of a discussion, it's more of a theory right now, quantum computing. Is that correct?
Yeah, but no, people are saying that we're 5 to 10 years away from having quantum computing. Not my area of expertise, but.
Well, there's new people here. How can we acquire Bitcoin? It's obviously gotten tougher to mine. To get involved in the space and be a part of it. What advice, gentleman here, my new friend, is brand new. He's been in the game less than 3 months. He's here educating himself. What advice could you give somebody in a situation similar to him?
Well, the first thing you should do if you get interested in this is go get some coin. That's the first thing you should do because it's the best way to actually experience it. You'll learn in 10 seconds more than I'm going to probably be able to teach you in an hour of conversation by just actually play with it, touch it, transfer it. But local Bitcoins is an easy way. You've now got Bitcoin ATMs rolling out all over the place. You've got exchanges like Coinbase, one of my companies, Express Coin. We try to make it really easy to buy Bitcoin at this point.
And I guess the final
And
question.
if you actually don't have any, which would surprise me here, I'm also happy to give you some free Bitcoin right now. I give away coin every day.
Get it flowing. Get it
Yeah.
flowing. As an investor, I think sometimes the biggest misconception, and speaking for myself, not for everybody else, is that if somebody has money, they're just going to throw it at you. And like you said, I'm a good people, or good person. You're looking for good people. What steps does somebody have to have, or what steps does somebody have to take? What needs to be in place for you to entertain a business partnership or relationship with them? What does somebody need to do from their standpoint to be prepared to get an investment?
Well, I invest at pretty much every stage, but I'm normally not going to invest in a company that doesn't have a product yet, unless you've been successful in building businesses multiple times, mostly because that's the first sort of piece of what you'd call execution risk. You know, if you've demonstrated over the course of your career that there's not going to be execution risk around the development of the product, I can get over that hump. But typically, I want to see that you have a product, you have a little bit of traction, and you have a vision for how to, make it as successful as you can. But typically post-product, preferably with a small amount of traction.
And that's what differentiates an angel investor in this space or any space from a traditional investor like a fund, because they typically want to see some sort of cash flow, some sort of gain where the business is maintaining itself, whereas here, as you're investing in people. How long do you think till traditional financing comes into the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency space?
Well, I mean, I think we're here. I predicted in Vegas last year, at the end of the year, that I thought at least $500 million of venture capital would flow into the cryptocurrency ecosystem this year. We, I think, broke 100 million in Q1, so that prediction's probably going to be off. It's probably going to be closer to $1 billion, so the money's coming in. I mean, you've got major institutions like Fortress. They're a $55 billion fund investing heavily in the space. I've been talking to a lot of other major institutions. It's on everybody's radar, from the the Visas, the American Expresses, the Goldman Sachs, the Morgan Stanleys. Everyone is well aware of this and becoming interested.
We have time for 2 questions. We have 2 questions from the crowd, and then we've got to continue to move on, unfortunately. These darn short time slots. We're good at the beginning. Amy, what do you have?
I have a question from an interesting avenue here. Projects started by women. How many have you either funded or are you aware of? Have you done this in the past?
Projects started by women. How many have you funded and aware of?
That I've funded. Unfortunately, not enough. And I encourage more women to come into the cryptocurrency ecosystem and be entrepreneurial.
And come to our party tonight.
And it's been great. We've been seeing more women getting into the space, which is a great thing. In terms of my existing deals, well, NYBX, which is LedgerX, which is here in New York. I guess Kraken, Constance is one of the key executives there. A couple of my deals outside of the crypto space. The last gaming deal I did a business called FGL, or Lucrative Gaming. I mean, certainly, it's not. I don't care if you're old, young, male, female, as long as I think you are, you've got the call it the tenacity to succeed as an entrepreneur. It's a tough road. I try to talk most people out of it.
Well,
I say you got to be a little crazy to do it.
We're going to wrap up. I'd like you to explain GoCoin a little bit more in detail, because that's something that's fascinating to me. That'll be after this question, and then if you could kind of give your maybe final summary of where it's at. But we have one more question I want to take before you explain GoCoin and kind of give us your final thoughts. I'll step to the side and you can deliver that message. Amy?
All right. Brock, in your opinion, what do you see as the driver for cryptocurrency in Africa?
Well, I think it's back to the feature phone. Africa, most Africans today don't have smartphones. And there's not wallet technology currently deployed into the feature phone market, which is the reason I said I'm interested in this SIM card deal. I think that's the first thing, is that you have to be able to access it. And you got to be able to access it with the systems and technology that people have in hand today. So I think that's the biggest challenge, I think, in the emerging markets today, is you need to be able to deploy it into the infrastructure that's already there, which is feature phones.
That GoCoin project is really interesting.
Yeah, GoCoin is a payment a payment platform in the Bitcoin or broader cryptocurrency space, similar to Dupay or Coinbase. I think we're number 3 in the market, and we're the only one that supports altcoins, specifically Doge and Litecoin today, and we'll probably see more going forward.
Very cool. And would you mind giving everybody a little wrap up on cryptocurrency? I'll step to the side for
Sure.
a good film shot, and then we can give him a big round of applause, right, everybody?
Well, thank you for having me. No, I mean, this is, I was born in 1980. I got into the beginning of the internet bubble, and one of the biggest sort of regrets I had in my life is I'm like, oh, I wish I had just been a little bit older and been able to take advantage of this massive trend. There'll probably never be another one like it again. And when the Bitcoin space actually started to develop, because originally I wasn't sure Bitcoin was going to work in 2009, 2010. And not because I didn't believe in the idea. The question is, it's obviously the future or something like it, but was the future now or 25 years from now? And so I took more of a wait and see approach the first couple of years. And no, the future is absolutely now. This has happened. We're all here. And I mean, just watching how the market has developed over the last year, it's unbelievable. If you were at San Jose's Bitcoin conference about this time last year, and you start looking at how the market has developed in the last 12 months, the number of entrepreneurs that have come into the space trying to attack and tackle some of the issues to create greater accessibility, it's just been a phenomenal ride. And back to the idea, is it too late? I think we are where the internet was in like 1991, 1992. There's only 3, 4, 5 million people around the world today that have cryptocurrency. So, you know, when we look back 10 years from now and you say, I got into Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies in, you know, April 2014, people are going to be like, wow, that was really early. So the idea of, are we too late? It's very, very early days still. And it's a great time to be building. Thank you, buddy.